Hello and welcome to week 13 of the Marea and Friends concert series. This week we are very thankful to be here with clarinetist Graeme Steele Johnson, who's one of our very good friends, and we hope that you didn't miss us too much in our week off and that you had a really wonderful Thanksgiving and were able to celebrate it safely. And yeah, we're also very thankful to be back. The week didn't feel quite as complete without a Marea and Friends episode.
Yeah, we're super excited to join together with Graeme virtually, and we recently had the wonderful opportunity of playing an outdoor, socially distant concert with him with the Center for Musical Excellence, where he played the Mozart Clarinet Concerto on basset clarinet. And that was a lot of fun, and we've had so much fun putting this together, and we're super excited to share everything with you. So a little bit more about Graeme. He is the winner of the Hellam Young Artists Competition and the Yamaha Young Performing Artists Competition. Graeme Steele Johnson has established a multifaceted career as a clarinetist, writer, and performance designer. He has appeared recently as a TED Talk speaker, as a chamber musician at Carnegie Hall's Yale Recital Hall, the Kennedy Center, Chamber Music Northwest, Chicago's Dame Mira Hess Series, and the Phoenix Chamber Music Festival, and as a concerto soloist with the Vienna International Orchestra, Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and the Caroga Lake and Vermont Mozart Festival Orchestras. He's now a doctoral fellow at the Graduate Center at CUNY under the mentorship of Charles Niedick.
Tonight's theme discusses the being process-oriented, and a lot of times when we're kind of losing patience for getting out of this pandemic, and when you just really want to get a piece right or you want to get things checked off the list, we kind of lose the joy of the journey. And Graeme really discusses how it's important to be really focused on the process in your personal development and really experiencing the cross-pollination and of several art forms and how that can benefit you on your journey. So also just a couple little reminders, if you haven't yet, please check out our website to purchase a $5 optional virtual ticket or make a donation. The artists really appreciate your support, and we pour our hearts and souls every week into creating these episodes, and we look really forward to sharing them with you.
So without further ado, let's get started.
So our first question this evening with Graeme is just if you could tell us a little bit about your musical journey, some of your musical mentors, inspirations, and what you're up to now. Yeah.
Sure.
And maybe where you are now too, because you're home for the foreseeable. Yeah.
That's right. I'm coming to you currently from Las Vegas,
Woo.
which is where my parents live now. I didn't grow up there. In fact, they moved around a lot, and this is just the latest in a series of moves. I was born in New York and then lived in Cincinnati, Detroit, and Texas for most of my life, which is where my musical journey began, as you say. In Texas, in the public schools, at least in 6th grade, everyone has to choose a band, choir, or orchestra and do that for a year, but they really try to encourage kids to stick with it for longer. And band culture in particular is huge in Texas because of the football orbit, which sort of sucks everything into it down there. So I ended up in band playing clarinet. That was my first foray into music. I had a really great private teacher then named Andre Canabou, who I am lucky to still be acquainted with. And I think he was one thing I liked about studying with him is that I felt like he always gave it to me straight. That sort of matter of factness. I don't know if I realized it at the time, but in retrospect, I appreciate that. I did my undergrad at University of Texas, Hook'em Horns, in Austin, and studied there with a clarinetist named Nathan Williams, who was also like the perfect teacher for me at that point in my life. And I mean, I really admire his playing, but also just his sort of his kind of like gracious and just like joyful worldview. So when I got to school, he had something in like the syllabus that said performance majors should, expect to practice at least or expect to practice 4 to 5 hours a day. And so I was like an overzealous freshman, and I was like, okay, I'm going to practice 6 hours a day. And so, like, no matter what, for pretty much all of undergrad, I was like, I would not stop until I had clocked my 6 hours. And then I went to Yale, of course, where I spent 3 years. That was 2 degrees, and studied with David Schifrin, among many other teachers there. And that was, I mean, Yale, as you know, is such a special place for many reasons. But for me, Schifrin was like my idol, clarinet idol. Like he's who I grew up listening to. It was kind of surreal to like audition for him first of all, and then to just like play for him every week, after having pored over his recordings and kind of revered him as an idea. And then in person, he's just like the nicest guy and so personable. And if you met him on the street, you would never guess that he's like a clarinet legend.
And also talk about a joyful style of playing. I feel like every time I sit in the audience watching Mr. Schifrin, I like immediately forget everything going on, and I just am with the music. And that's a really special.
Yeah, absolutely. He used to always tell me I need to inhabit the music. And I think that's something that he really exudes when he plays. It's just like totally absorbed. He's a part of my daily thought process. Even stuff that I never played for him, I kind of like, I mean, like the first thing I think is probably like, what would Schifrin do?
Yeah.
I feel like I can kind of hear his voice, even for things that we never worked on together. So that was 3 years. And then I was out of school for a year living in New York, where I live now. And then I started a doctorate at the Graduate Center at CUNY, which is City University of New York, which for whatever reason, a lot of people don't know about this program. I didn't until in that year living in New York, a friend of mine who went on to win the largest piano prize in the world. He was like, he went there and he was like, oh, you should look into the Graduate Center. Like, it's an amazing program. And the cool thing about it is that you can study with anyone you want in like greater New York, or even someone who just has enough of a New York career that they're around. That gave me the opportunity to study with Charlie Neidig, who's another one of my clarinet heroes. And he's someone who, I mean, he's kind of like Paganini of the clarinet. Like he does things that are just like inhuman on the instrument, things that I never would have thought were possible. And like still I listen to his recordings or listen to him in lessons, and I'm just thinking like, what in the world? How does he do that?
Yeah.
And the other thing I love about him is that like I tend to overthink things. That's like
No.
You don't seem surprised. And so like teachers would always tell me like, stop thinking too much, you're thinking too much. Neidig is someone who I don't know, before studying with him I would have thought, because he's actually like a very cerebral person, and is like I think one of the great like musical thinkers of our time, and just knows every score like backwards and forwards. His approach to the clarinet is just like, oh, don't worry about it. Just like, you know, to think this thing and then just like let the rest happen. And so it's been sort of freeing in that way to, especially I think at the doctorate level, you know, where I'm not in undergrad needing to like constantly spend 6 hours a day, you know, for fear that I'll forget how to play my instrument. But like after having done like many degrees and been in school for a long time, to like have someone encourage me to like trust myself on the instrument and be able to like let go of some things.
So the first piece on the program tonight is a familiar tune from Tchaikovsky's ballet, The Nutcracker. And this is commonly heard around this time of year for the holiday season, and it's been a lot of fun putting this arrangement together for oboe, bassoon, and clarinet.
Yeah, and normally you would hear this with the ballerinas and the full pit orchestra below, but it's been a really fun challenge to be playing other instruments in this arrangement. And also, Tchaikovsky writes beautiful parts for the wind instruments in his symphonies, and it really makes me reminiscent of playing those when we play this arrangement.
So we hope you enjoy the trio version of the overture to Tchaikovsky's ballet, The Nutcracker.
Let's get started.
I prefaced this question when we were talking to Graeme about what we were going to be talking about in the interview, because it's not a question that I feel like gets asked a lot, because it's like, oh, this person just won the greatest piano competition in the world, or this person, I am thrilled to announce I can't wait to do this concert. How did this person get here? But there also, with these great accomplishments, comes a lot of rejections and a lot of things that this person probably came really close to. And similar to that, like, Graeme, you've had accomplished so many things and have an incredible career, but like, how did you face rejections to those things that you came so close to, and things that like maybe other people were doing that like were in your kind of same timeline, same path? And like, how did you stay true to your path and not get stuck comparing yourself to other people?
I never faced rejection, actually.
Oh, my bad.
It's just
so next question.
Okay.
No, I am glad you asked that, because you're right. People don't talk about it enough, and it's like the Instagram facade, where you only post the things that go well, you know.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've found it like so empowering to hear people like David Schifrin and Charlie Neidig like tell me about the times they got cut from international competitions and stuff. And it's so funny, you know, it's funny like hearing that from superstars, because like somehow I feel like in our minds we like give them a pass from the like trials and tribulations of ordinary people, but like it's not that way.
We're all ordinary people, everyone. It's so weird to think.
I've been lucky to like have won a few things, like competition wise or whatever, and lost a great deal of things in that arena. But for me, the most meaningful experiences, or even some of the most valuable opportunities I've had, have been things that you can't audition for, or maybe I should say things that you audition for every day, just by being a good colleague, producing good work, you know, like having a great product, like saying yes to everything, you know, being proactive. Like it's really simpler, I think, than people often make it. You know, everyone wants to know, like, how do you win competitions? How do you win auditions? Blah, blah, blah. And like, I've always felt like those things are glamorous, yes, and certainly a nice boost to have. But especially nowadays, it may have been more so like this, like 40 or 50 years ago. But especially nowadays, where things are more democratized, competitions and auditions don't make or break a career the way they might have used to. Or even, you know, in the old days, I'm sure even then, it had people's success still had a lot to do with just how you are to work with. So as I said, the things that have meant the most to me have, in general, not come from like I beat out a bunch of clarinet players in an audition, but you know, have come from the generosity of people I know, like people in my circle or in my professional network, or mentors or friends who, you know, have been kind enough to pass things on to me, or to, you know, present opportunities for me, or to me, or to think of me for, you know, things. You know, all of that said, back to competitions themselves and you know, concrete rejection that will happen, you know, inevitably. I try to be sort of process focused as opposed to goal focused, or like individual event focused. Instead of like, you know, I really want to win this one specific audition, like that could go either way, you know. And really with most auditions, the odds are like stacked against you. So there's just like so many factors out of your control anyway. so rather than like putting all my eggs into the basket of a singular event, I just try to kind of trust the process that, like, I'll audition for things like when they come around, and I'll like, do my best and like show up on time and be nice to people, go out for drinks with people after concerts. And I believe that in the end, things will work out. Maybe not every specific thing that you wanted, but the general trajectory that you want, I think will come to fruition. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the other thing is like talking about.
Sorry. I literally, Amelia and I were walking down the street yesterday, and I literally said, "I'm just gonna put all my eggs in one basket, and it's just gonna go. Once this pandemic's over, I'm just gonna win a job. It's gonna be great." But you know what? That's the thing, though. It's like to hear like you talk about just how the things that aren't like experienced by winning something or by a position or something, like that's so refreshing. And it also kind of made me think that like there are these moments, and they happen because I mean we've been assembling instruments for how many years now, it's just like every day we do this, and there are sometimes still these moments where I put my bassoon together, and I like, it's like this weird moment where it's like, oh, I'm playing a bassoon. I love playing the bassoon so much, and like, and I'm beside myself that I get to do this every day, and like those moments in themselves, like obviously there are like, eventually you want to have a career and do things, but like those moments are really special. So
Yeah, the other thing is like if you do put all your eggs in one basket, like like I want to, say you're like absolutely set on going to Juilliard or something, and then you show up to the audition, and like, of course you've been like working your tail off for months and stuff, and like, but if you're just like laser focused on this one thing, I just feel like how can you possibly expect yourself to perform under that kind of pressure, when you've built it up to be this kind of insurmountable, or just like put it on a pedestal like that. And so for example, in like my own experience, this was the first time I graduated from Yale.
Yeah.
Wait, no. The second time I graduated from Yale.
How many people can say that they graduated from Yale twice? So that's.
Well, you guys are on your way. So the second time, I really wanted to get into Ensemble Connect, and like, of course I auditioned for other things too, but like that was what I really wanted, and I felt like it was a great fit for me and I for it, just in terms of like, sort of artistic interests and sort of philosophy. And yeah, so I thought I played well at the thing, and then I made finals, and I thought the interview went well, and I was like, wow, like, I think I'm gonna get it. And then I didn't get it. And so the reason I wanted it so badly was because, of course, like I think it's a very special program on its own, but I think it also, first of all, produces like really great chamber musicians, and second of all, sets them up very nicely in like the New York City sort of chamber music world.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
wait, sorry, just like 1 second. For people who don't know what Ensemble Connect is, it's a 2-year fellowship program that's based in Carnegie Hall and also paired with the New York City public school systems. And it's a really wonderful well, now Graeme can continue, but I just wanted yeah.
Sorry, thank you for that.
No, I just make sure that people knew.
Yeah. And so this was while I was still in New Haven, and I was thinking like, oh, like, wouldn't that be so perfect? I could move to New York, which is what I wanted. And then I would get out of the program, and I would like, have these connections from the program and sort of be like set up, like embedded in the New York scene. And so, yeah, then I didn't get it. And I was like, what am I going to do? Like, blah, blah, blah. And it's funny because like moving to New York, I ended up like the people who were in Ensemble Connect, that class, like that I would have been in, uh, ended up being like the people I play with most often. And so it was like, wow, like I ended up playing with these people anyway. And at the time I was so crushed by not getting in and thinking that like, I'm never going to break into the scene now. Like I don't have any sort of institutional ties to New York. Like what am I going to do? Just move there and expect, things to, but I did. And I think it's easy to be seduced by like specific opportunities and like whatever they promise, the way that Ensemble Connect certainly has like a lot of alluring qualities and a lot of kind of potential for like future things that could develop out of it. But like I said before, like honestly, I don't think my life would look very different right now if I had gotten it,
Yeah.
because in the end, I think like even if you win the biggest piano prize in the world, it's probably
I'm just gonna keep referencing that throughout the whole interview.
it's probably your daily conduct that is more powerful than like any one prize or any one institutional support.
The next piece that we will be playing on the program is the third movement of André Jolivet's Sonatine for oboe and bassoon. And if you've been tuning in or would like to look back, you can hear movements 1 and 2 on weeks 9 and 12 respectively. And so tonight we'll be playing the third movement, and that is entitled ostinato. And the word ostinato means a continually repeated phrase in music. And in this movement, you will hear a very light and jazzy melody that is repeated in the oboe line. And it sounds like this. This melody is very sneaky and playful, and every time you don't really know when it's going to come back. It even sneaks up on us a little bit.
And we just want to say thank you to Stephen Taylor, who is my current oboe professor at the Yale School of Music. And he's been coaching us on this entire piece, and we have finally reached the end of it. So thank you so much. It's been so much fun getting together virtually. We hope you enjoy the third movement.
I guess can you just talk briefly about what you do exactly, like writing program notes and yeah, like how that sort of, I mean, you kind of mentioned it briefly before, but just how that sort of intertwines with all of these other things in your life. Yeah, and also before Graeme gets into talking about this, I would just like to say, before I got to know Graeme, his name was just in the program book at the Norfolk Chamber Music Festival, and I just say like who is this? I love his program notes, you know, like talking about these mellifluous, like there's like all like he has like these great, you have such a great way of writing about music, and it really shaped how I saw the repertoire for that summer. So yeah, I want to hear you talk about this.
I can finally say my reputation precedes me. Yeah, I got into writing program notes because my parents and most of my extended family are newspaper journalists. So I grew up around writing, really great writing, and probably not by accident. I loved writing myself since I was a kid, and but like in music school, I just wasn't getting to write very much anymore, or as much as I wanted to. And so when I was at Yale, there was a class being offered on Schoenberg's Society for Private Musical Performances from like right after World War One, and I took the class, and it was running parallel to Yale and New York series at Carnegie Hall that year, and so all the Yale and New York concerts that season were of music from this Society of Schoenberg's that lasted like 3 years, and so we like studied that music, and then the end of it, I was playing this sort of like Schoenberg Society chamber arrangement of Bruckner 7 in Carnegie Hall with like Ani Kavafian and Bill Purvis and Wei Yi. They asked, Paul Hawkshaw asked someone in the class to write an essay on that piece for the like program booklet at Carnegie Hall. And I was like, ooh, like this is so nerdy. I was like, ooh, I want to do that. So I wrote this essay. It was like a little more analytical than typical program notes, but was perhaps a sign of the style of program note writing that was to come for me. So after that, I was talking to Michael Friedman, another wonderful Yale professor, and I said like, oh, I wrote this. He might have read it. I was like, I wrote this essay for the Yale New York booklets, and I was wondering if there's a way for me to write program notes like for other YSM concerts. And he was like, well, usually they save those for the DMA students, because I don't know if it's like a requirement of the degree at Yale or what. And he was like, but yeah, like you'd be great. You should be writing those. I had taken his class and stuff. And so literally right then he like walked me down to the communications office and told the guy who like oversees program notes, he's like, "Oh, this is my student Graeme. He should he should really write program notes for Philharmonia concerts." And the guy was like, "Oh, I read your Bruckner essay. Like it was really good." And so he's like, "Yeah, you want to do the next concert?" So that's just how it happened. And it's funny, I always say my program note career took off way faster than my clarinet playing career. Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Before I play this piece, I just want to say a few words about the instrument I'm working with. What you see here is called a basset clarinet. It's basically an elongated regular clarinet, as you can see. So it can play all the notes a normal clarinet can on the top half, and on the lower end it can play even more. And that's why it has all this extra hardware on the bottom, as you'll see. So to give you a little example, a regular clarinet stops here. That's a low E on our instrument. But with the basset clarinet, you get all of these extra notes. That's down to a low C. So it may not seem like a lot, but it actually changes a lot about the contour and character of the works Mozart originally wrote for this instrument. They're sort of rare nowadays because the only standard pieces that call for this instrument are Mozart's Clarinet Concerto and Clarinet Quintet. So I actually had to commission this instrument from an instrument maker in Toronto. So I sent him a regular clarinet that stopped about here, and he built the rest of this onto it. But Mozart's not all it's good for, I think. I don't get to play a lot of Bach because the clarinet didn't exist in Bach's lifetime. But this is such a magical instrument, and since I do have these extra low notes, I think Bach's cello suites actually work quite nicely on the basset clarinet. So, with apologies to cellists, I'm going to try the Sarabande movement of Bach's G major cello suite, number 1.
this pandemic, we've all struggled with motivation. So what has kept you motivated? And then if you could like tell your former self before this pandemic that this pandemic was about to happen,
Okay, I get
what
you.
advice would you give that self? So you were on this path of like just chugging along. Everybody was. I was on this path, I feel like. And then the pandemic hit, shut everything down. Things went crazy. So if you could somehow see the future,
Superpowers.
what would you have told yourself? Like, if anything. Yeah.
Invest in Zoom.
Yeah.
Put my life savings in Zoom stock.
Yeah.
Well, to your first question about motivation, I think one thing I'm grateful for, which I'm grateful to the pandemic, is the way it's kind of clarified or just given me occasion to like reevaluate like what really matters, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And also just kind of forced especially, I mean, classical music people are always like this, I think, because of just the like constant, you know, pressure to like be practicing, you know, like our work is never done kind of thing. And then also New York is always like this because it just doesn't stop.
Yeah.
But the pandemic forced this, you know, kind of like pause, or at least like huge deceleration of the pace of life. And so like, you know, I found myself, and still do, like, but especially early in the pandemic when I was in New York and just feeling like cramped all the time, and, you know, couldn't take the subway, couldn't do anything. We would like start taking walks every day just because like we had to, you know, for our own sanity, to like get out of the apartment. And that's, I mean, it's such a small thing, but before the pandemic, I would have never made time for that. You know, I would think like, oh, I can't, I have to practice, I have to do whatever, like I'm too busy. You know, I might walk to go somewhere, like to get groceries or to like run to class or whatever, a rehearsal, but to just like walk, you know, for no reason but to like get outside and like be refreshed. It's funny that it takes a shutdown of life as we know it to kind of revalorize simple pleasures like that. And, you know, calling my family and stuff, that's something I did, of course, regularly, but like, I don't know, just like checking in with people and stuff. And, you know, now I'm here with my family for, I'll stay here for longer than I've been home since I moved out, you know, to go to college.
Yeah.
Because I was always at festivals or like always had concerts, so I couldn't be away from, you know, my like professional kind of center for such an extended period of time. So of course there's, you know, I'm still mourning, you know, all the lost concerts and everything, and there's a lot of uncertainty ahead, of course, but I've also just like found a lot of peace in, you know, appreciating the things that that are made possible by the current circumstances, even in the face of a lot of things that aren't possible anymore, like staying home with my family and, you know, spending like serious time with them, or going outside or whatever. So along those lines, I don't know if it's like this in the oboe and bassoon worlds, probably, but in the clarinet world, since the pandemic started, there's been all these like virtual like boot camp, I guess, things that have kind of cropped up. And, you know, they're like sessions of like lessons and master classes or whatever, you know, which is like cool to see. And, you know, I'm sure a great resource, especially for people whose studies have been interrupted. One of them I saw that in its description, and sorry to whoever organized this, but I hated it. The description said there will be, there will be two kinds of people on the other side of this pandemic: those who made massive gains in their playing and those who didn't. And I was just like, seriously? Like, people are dying around the world. People are like having mental health crises and like their lives upended. And we're going to like shame people for not practicing enough. Yeah. So I find that kind of thing like totally unmotivating. This sort of like militaristic devotion to like practicing your instrument. As I've said over and over, I've sort of like moved gradually away from that approach in like my own practice, since undergrad. Not that like I don't practice, but just this idea that like, this kind of like drill sergeant approach to practicing, like things like will be as hard as you make them out to be, So like if you're, I don't know, if I'm like trying to learn a new skill or something and double tonguing or something and think like, oh, if I don't like do this specific regimen like every day for this many minutes, and these specific exercises, I'm never going to conquer it. Well, of course not. Not with that attitude, And this is again where like Charlie Nidek's kind of philosophy of like, oh, just don't worry about it. Just like, do something, but like don't obsess over like tiny details like that. I find that very empowering. Motivation for me, especially in a time like this, is a more holistic product of like just general like well-being and like kindness to myself. Especially in such a traumatic time. Like, I just don't think this is the time for drill sergeant practicing. It's, and like guilting people about like how much or little they've practiced, and there'll be two kinds of people. Like, I think it's much more productive to like be sensitive to like your own, mental state and like your needs, and to like nourish them. And that's not to say like don't practice. And of course, like there's plenty of times I don't want to practice but still will. It's not that, but it's more like for me, like it's not constructive to just like find motivation in like guilt or like shame or like feeling bad about myself, And even if that was productive, like what kind of way to live is that? I just don't want to, even if I was becoming amazing at my instrument, I wouldn't want to live that way,
Yeah.
I would rather, and plus all these things like going for walks and, spending your time with your family and friends and whatever, or like reading or, watching Netflix, like cooking. I think always says art is suffering, right? But like art is joy too, and it's not only the negative emotions that can like inform the depth of our artistry. And so I think, if your whole life is practicing and practicing only, like what can you really have to say like when you get on stage, So I try to like absorb like, everything that's, available to me, and trust that will in some way filter into what I do as an artist. And it's also a process of like, at least for me, of like alternation, like a pendulum. And I think that's part of why I'm bothered by these kind of like one size fits all, like, methodologies that kind of purport to like, be the like one way to like practice, or the one way to make gains in your playing, massive gains in your playing. Yeah. Like my drill sergeant years in undergrad, where I was just like, shedding constantly, were like super important for my development. And I'm not advocating for like a half-hearted wandering through like a musical journey. Like there certainly is tons of like discipline required, but I think it's okay to like modulate your relationship with practicing and with like your instrument, or just like your kind of artistic approach. And for me, it often works like a pendulum. Like I'll go really hard in one direction, thinking that like this is the way for me, like, and I'm like, liking what I'm seeing in this direction, and then all of a sudden I like hit a wall and realize like, wait, actually I need to do the opposite. So I think for me, there's been sort of like a zigzag path toward development in any direction. And I just try to remind myself to like stay open to that possibility. And if I was just blinders all the time about like, I have to do this because this one person told me to, then I think I would have missed out on some things.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I feel like especially during the pandemic, just ride your pendulum, ride your pandemic pendulum.
Right.
Yeah, you just like, you can't get too like, I mean, sometimes I feel like, yeah, I'm super inspired to make reeds. Sometimes I'm super inspired to try all these recipes.
Yeah.
It's like yoga, like there's all these different directions. Just ride that pendulum.
Something my undergrad teacher told me back in my 6 hours a day phase was that, sometimes the most productive thing you can do is go to sleep.
That's really good.
Put your instrument away,
Flash that quote. Yeah.
That's so true.
Well, that was a very insightful interview. I learned a lot today. I feel like I learned.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
It flew by.
It flew by. Yeah. I know. Time flies when you're learning a lot from your friend on Zoom. we were just riding on the pendulum.
That's right. Just gotta write it out.
That should be the theme of the episode. Yeah. Your pandemic pendulum.
And the final piece that we have on the program tonight is The Man I Love, a popular standard by George Gershwin, written in 1924. And this happens to be one of my favorite tunes, and I used to sing it all the time when I was a little girl, and I'm still dreaming of the man I love. And tonight we are joined on the series again by cellist Kyle Price, who was featured on week 7 of the Marea and Friends concert series, and also Aaron Schwartz, violinist. And it's just such a joy to collaborate with these incredibly talented artists for the second time in this virtual era. And it's great to connect with artists during this time and have people come back onto the show.
And we also want to say another thank you to Graeme for writing this arrangement. Which is another example of one of his many talents. And it's been a lot of fun putting everything together, and we really hope that you enjoy this rendition of The Man I Love.
comes my way, I'll do my best to make him stay. He'll look at me and smile, I'll understand. Then in a little while he'll take my hand, and though it seems absurd, I know we both won't say a word. Maybe I shall meet him Sunday, maybe Monday, maybe not. Still, I'm sure I'll meet him one day, maybe Tuesday will be my good news day. He'll build a little home that's meant for two, from which I'll never roam. Who would you? And so all else above, I'm dreaming of the man I He'll build a little home just meant for two, from which I never roam. Who would you? And so all else above, I'm dreaming of the man I
Thank you so much, Graeme, Kyle, and Erin. That was a lot of fun, and it just really brought a lot of joy to our evening.
And next week we'll be back again with our friend and colleague Marea Ford, who has actually already written us an arrangement
By Gershwin.
by George Gershwin.
Yeah.
Which you can check out on week 1 of Marea and Friends.
way back.
And we're so excited to have him back and have him featured on this series. We'll be playing a lot of his music next week, and he's a wonderful person and just a wonderful musician, and we're so excited to have him on. And before we end tonight, just a little reminder about purchasing an optional $5 virtual ticket, and you can fill out our survey. Both links are in the description of this video. So we hope to see you next week.
Thank you so much to our virtual audiences that have been tuning in week after week, and all of our collaborators tonight and Graeme. This episode certainly brought a lot of light to my life, and I'm just very grateful for the series.